Okay. Well, welcome to the Oroville City Elementary School District Board meeting. I will call the meeting to order at 5 p.m. We will convene into open session. We'll start with roll call. Lisa Torres.
Here.
Jessica Anthony.
Present.
Sandra Barnes.
Here.
Bill LeGrand is absent. He'll be late. Okay. Dr. Holtum is absent. All right. Item 3, closed session A, public comment on closed session items. The board will extend an invitation to interested parties who wish to speak on items that are listed on the closed session agenda. For those attending remotely who wish to comment, use the raise your hand button to be called on to speak. Comments may also be emailed to backpack@ocesd.net. Please include your first and last name in your email. Comments received pertaining to items listed on the closed session agenda will be read into the record during this time. However, comments received without the sender's name will not be read. Do we have any emails in backpack to read?
No, we do not.
Okay, and we don't have any hands raised
No, we do not.
online and nobody in the audience here to speak for public comment.
Nope.
Okay, so then we will recess into closed session at 5:01.
The 17-year-old is in distance learning. So there's like really, they pay their own bills. It's like I have roommates, I have tenants in my house.
You go to bed when you want.
I go to
and
bed when I want.
nobody wakes you up.
Okay, we are live, so we will reconvene into open session at 5:19. And there is no action to report that was taken in closed session, so we will move on to Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with Okay, we'll move on to item 5, comment session, comments and announcements by board members. Lisa.
Good evening. Good to see those that are here, those that are online. I think that the weather is really good right now. I just heard it was officially summertime, so I'm looking really forward to that. I just want to say that we did have the girls go to New Orleans for gymnastics, and they did come back and they did an awesome job. Shalene placed 3rd on vault, 5th on bars, and 7th all around across the whole nation. So we have a lot of girls that went out there and did their thing and represented Orville very well. So I just hope that everybody has a safe summer and just continue to come and support.
Thank you. Jessica Anthony.
Hi. Since it's been the last day of school came and went, and I was fortunate enough to witness the excitement of water play days and saying goodbye to 5th graders and just the all around excitement of children looking forward to summer. And so it's been really great. Having all that excitement going on and seeing all the kids out and about and doing their summer thing. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Sandra Barnes.
Yeah, so speaking of the beginning of summer things, traditions, we had graduations for the 8th graders, Ishi and Central. And that went off without a hitch. The program was a little bit changed, so it was shorter this year, which was unexpected, but still a blessing. The cool weather held out. So unlike past years where we were, arming ourselves with big hats, sunscreen, and lots of water, we actually had a pleasant, enjoyable experience. So that was awesome. This morning I went to the Wednesday Farmers Market that's held by the hospital and ran into one of the old band parents from the high school band. Her youngest is still in the elementary school district and wanted to rave about the incredible time he's having in summer school right now. So 2 thumbs up on that regard. And she wanted to voice her opinion that we need so many more support classifieds to assist with the kids in their reading specifically. So good times, yeah. I'm looking forward to pushing on that too.
Thank you. All right, and I have nothing to report, so we'll move on to comments and announcements by administration. Andrew James.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Spencer's not here tonight. I know this is his first board meeting he's missed, but he is taking a group of youth to Santa Cruz for some fun in the sun. And I told him I could manage it, be all right. We've got a lot of stuff going on around the district right now. For our maintenance crews, this is the busy time. We've got projects going on at every site. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of our maintenance custodial staff that are out there cleaning sites, working on big projects, working on little projects. We have a crew of people we've hired from our classified staff who are disinfecting and wiping and doing computer updates on all the Chromebooks throughout the district. So everybody's working hard and working fast, and just extremely thankful for all the support we have this summer.
Great, thank you. And do you have a report? Okay. All right, so we'll move on to comments by the public. At this time, the board will extend an invitation to interested parties who wish to speak on matters which are school related. For those attending remotely who wish to comment, use the raise your hand button to be called on to speak. Comments or questions may also be emailed to backpack@ocesd.net. Please include your first and last name in your email. Comments and questions received will be read into the record and or addressed during the meeting. However, comments received without the sender's name will not be shared during the meeting. Do we have any comments by the public in our email?
No, we do not.
Okay, do we have any online?
No, we do not.
Okay, and do we have anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment at this time? Okay, so we'll move on. So we'll move on to the public hearing session, A, draft trustee area maps, public hearing number 2. Need to push the little button on your microphone to turn that one on. There you go.
All right, good evening. So good to be here again. And so this is our second of the required public hearings. And I'll kind of get into when the slides are up in a moment, just a reminder of our overall timeline, where we are in the process. And of course, this is all in the arena of transitioning from your at-large elections to election by trustee areas. So going forward, as of the November 2024 election, rather than all the open board seats all going up to the entire district's voters to elect, with the top number of vote getters for the number of open seats getting on the board, there will instead be 5 different distinct trustee areas. And only the voters who live in an area will vote for candidates who also must live in that same area. And then each of the 5 trustee areas will essentially vote its own person onto the 5-member board. And so that is the basic process of what we're doing. We already had, just as a reminder, a couple of pre-map public hearings just to see if there was any input from the community before we even came up with map options. Back in April, we first presented the map options, and then last month, we're here to have the first public hearing. This is now the second required public hearing that comes from Education Code and Elections Code laws. And depending on what we hear tonight at the public hearing, once we open that up in a few minutes, you are open as a board. Once you have conducted that second public hearing, you can, if you are ready to do so, there is an action item on the agenda a little bit later on tonight. Go ahead and have that discussion and select the map option that you want to move forward with. If we do wind up hearing some input and we go back to the drawing board with some options tonight based on things we hear that hadn't come up until now, then I'll be back here in July to, if necessary, go into that. But again, you have your first opportunity with a separate agenda item after our public hearing is concluded to go ahead and just move forward if you feel like you are in a position to have enough information to go ahead and do that tonight. And then just going back, then there'll be just some additional work for me on my end, taking whatever map is ultimately selected to the county committee on school district reorganization, who also needs to confirm their approval, and then a little bit of business with the state, just getting a waiver, which is very common. Literally every school district does not put it back on your ballot to have all your voters approve your maps. We go to the state and get a waiver for that, which is very common. And then by November, just a little bit more than a year from now at this point, that first election will be held by trustee area instead of at large. And so again, just a very quick review in case there is anyone who is tuning in and seeing this for the first time. We have 4 initial options that were developed. The board has already indicated that one of those options is not likely to be under consideration. We still have, if we need to pull those up, I have them at the back of the presentation. We can get back into them if someone really is curious about the orange map, but otherwise we're going to focus on the blue, green, and purple maps, which we have presented before, but just a very quick overview. The blue map broadly uses major roads as much as possible for kind of very intuitive dividers between trustee areas. The green map is the answer to some of the pre-map public comment that we did receive, that the foothill areas, instead of all being in one trustee area, that there should be a map that has the foothills split between two trustee areas. So that was the starting point of that map. And then it just has a different flavor in part of the more densely populated portion of Oroville. And then the purple map is looking at some of those ethnicity concentrations. And so looking particularly at the Hispanic or Latino or the Asian population and having trustee areas that provide the most concentration of a community within a certain trustee area. What you see by that total variance column, that is basically the rule that all of these trustee areas should represent about the same number of people. The largest and the smallest area basically can't have more than 10% total variance. And how we calculate that is based on just the average of all the people who live in the school district boundary. We divide that by 5 for the 5 trustee areas. And so we look at how big is the largest area above that pure average, how small is the smallest area below it. And so say if you had one that was 3% above and one that was 3% below, that is 3 plus 3, and that would be 6% total variance. You were allowed to go up to 10. And in this case, everything that is under consideration is safely under that 10% variance. And then that last column is the current board grouped. And this is something that is absolutely good to look at. It was never our first consideration in any of these maps, but it basically means for the 5 members of the board right now, would any of you be paired up into a trustee area and have to run against each other and then have a potential vacant seat with no one who's currently on the board able to run for it? In this case, all 3 of the options that we're still really looking at are not grouped. Just again, as I've mentioned, thankfully, none of you live particularly close to each other, so it was not very hard for that to wind up being the case as we were looking at these other reasons to kind of make the maps look like they do. So just a very quick one, you will see one thing that is new this time is we have a suggested election sequence with each map. Again, when you adopt a map, you can also, should you so choose, suggest a different election sequence, but my suggested election sequence that I've put on each map is going to place the board member who resides in the trustee area to sync up the election of that trustee area with that existing board member's term. So in this case, on the blue map option in 2024, areas 1, 4, and 5 would be the ones to hold elections for the 3 board members whose terms when they were elected at large would be expiring. The 2 board members, I just saw that I have a typo there, so that should be areas for both of them, not areas 2 and 3, but for areas 2 and 3, the 2 board members who happen to live in those areas were just elected in the most recent election, still have the additional term through 2026, and then those trustee areas would have their first opportunity to elect someone by that system. And so you can just see the overall district, and then we'll move into a more zoomed in version where I've tried to put what are the major roads that delineate some of these areas. I'm just going to kind of move through these. If anyone has specific questions, we can certainly pull them up and I can answer questions in more detail. Just one quick reminder, all of these areas are built off of census block groups, which is the smallest that we can get data from the census to know exactly how many people are in it. So we have these kind of puzzle pieces, and there is only so many places, sometimes that we can or cannot subdivide something or have to keep certain things together to avoid making islands and things like that. So that said, we still have a lot of options, almost infinite possibilities for combining these census blocks in different ways. And then for each map, we certainly have that very detailed listing of the total population numbers with the more detailed look at the variance, with the more detailed look at the percent of the population within each area that is in the census, race, and ethnicity categories. And then you see by comparison, the entire district's population across the top in white with that total of 29,280 and the district-wide proportions by race and ethnicity so that you can see how each area compares to the district as a whole. So in this case, just looking, say, in trustee area 1, you see the proportion of the Asian population is more than twice as high as it is district-wide. which is again largely the spirit of what the trustee area process is trying to accomplish, is if there is a preferred candidate for a group that identifies by race and ethnicity, it is more likely for that population's voice to take effect in a smaller and more concentrated trustee area. So that said, just looking at the green area, this is again splitting the foothill region between two trustee areas. Again, you have your suggested sequence of elections and the close-up view of the western part of the district. Again, the same equivalent information with the demographic information. And finally, the purple map option, which again, the close-up look at what those new areas would look like. And again, the demographic area, and of course, the purple map option is the one that will produce the highest concentrations, with area 2 having the highest Latino population concentration, and area 2 also having the highest proportion of the Asian population. And that is the extent of the presentation. So again, if there are questions, particularly during the action item, I'm happy to pull these up again, but otherwise I will sit down so that the public can let you hear things if that is what they need to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, we don't ask for public comment, or do we? Is that only for the action item?
I think we do. No, we don't, or we do. Kim?
We do.
Yeah, we
Okay,
do.
it's a
Yeah.
public hearing. Thank you. Okay, so shall I ask the board if they would like to? Yeah, does the board have any questions or comments before we open it to the public?
My only question is Region 5 is ginormous. And the population density on Region 5 is tiny in comparison to the rest of them. What if no one runs for Region 5? What happens to that seat?
So you're talking about so in this map here, for instance. Yep, so each of the areas, yes, it is by footprint the largest amount of area, but it still has about the same number of total people in it as the other areas. That is one of those rules. In this case, it just by a small amount, 5,685 compared to the next smallest at 5,779. So it's just a little smaller, but that's the whole point of that variance rule.
Right, the population density is so different.
Oh, absolutely, it is. So you do have the lower density, but it will still be representing about the same number of people. And it can happen. Again, there is one, and I don't even know who, but one member of your board lives in that area now. But if that person were to choose not to run again when their term expired and no one else stepped up, then, this is kind of straying into the area where you would probably be consulting your legal counsel, but other districts where I have seen that happen, usually if literally no one even steps up to put their name on the ballot, then it just becomes a board appointment situation where you usually just try to find someone who lives in that area who would then be willing to come up and just be confirmed by the board. But since at that point, literally the opportunity to run an election came and went and no one stepped up, so the board could appoint somebody if they could find someone who was willing to take on the role.
Yeah, it would happen the same way that when we've had open
Right.
positions before
But
that
it would
nobody
have to
ran
be an appointment from that
from
region.
that region. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, so we'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak on the trustee area maps? Okay, do we have anyone who's sent anything into our email?
No, and we did put out another reminder today for people to elicit input. We haven't gotten really any feedback outside of the little bit of feedback we got from our initial meeting. I did reach out to the press. We hit all the social media multiple times, and are just not getting any interest.
Okay. Do we have anyone online right now with a raised hand who would like to speak?
Kimmy also tell me.
No. Okay, great. Then we will move on. Move on to item B, 2324 local control funding formula budget overview for parents.
Okay. So I have 3 back-to-back presentations. So the budget overview for parents is part of the requirements of the LCAP and the budget adoption. The budget overview for parents is designed to give a very, very broad view of the Orville City Elementary School District budget. It uses it using a couple of different graphs. And so I've included a couple of them in this presentation. The first one it comes up with is it shows parents or the public where funds that Orville City Elementary School District receives, where they come from. You can see 77% is from LCFF funding, which is state funding. And then of the LCFF, you can see that there's a big chunk that's supplemental and concentration, and then other LCFF funds. And you can see there's also, some other pie pieces for federal funds, local funds, other state funds. This is pretty typical for a school district. Our main source of funding is the state government, who provides us with all the money and all the rules. So let's see. One of the other ones that's featured in the budget overview for parents is the expenditures in the LCAP. And you can see we have a total budgeted general fund expenditures, and then it has what's in the LCAP is 10 million. So the LCAP consists of supplemental expenditures that are targeted for specific actions, like trying to target on foster youth or for behavior, incentive or behavior reform. And so those are all listed, explained in full depth in the LCAP. This shows, hey, 10 million of our budget, or 10.5 million, is LCAP expenditures. Our whole budget is $40 million. And in the budget overview for parents, I explained that, the other $30 million goes towards all of our K-12 general ed education. So all of our teachers, our facilities, and all these other things that we use the money for and spend the money on. Additionally, it's a little bit inflated this year because we still have one-time money from the COVID learning loss mitigation times that are being spent in the budget for the next couple of years that are going to go away. So they kind of artificially inflate that non-LCAP portion of the budget. So those are kind of the highlights of the budget overview for parents. Did you have any questions or?
Any questions or comments?
I know that the budget overview for parents is published on our webpage. It goes through, as we go and reach out to stakeholders for the LCAP. It's part of the LCAP. It's actually the first 3 pages. I'm not sure if there's another way that we send that information out. Janet would be the one who would talk to you about that, but we can ask her next board meeting. She would have that answer for you.
All right, thank you. You want to move on to LCAP?
All right, LCAP. So the LCAP is the local control accountability plan that we develop with all of our stakeholder groups, elicit their input, and develop a plan. I believe this is the 3rd year of a 3-year plan for our LCAP, and next year it'll be rewritten. So this is basically carbon copy of last year, get some more input, make a few small changes, whereas next year might be dramatically different from the current LCAP because it'll be completely rewritten. I did talk to Janet about the LCAP and how the process went. And this year we were able to get meaningful input from all of our stakeholder groups that were required to get for the LCAP. And there's a lot of different ones, including students, parents, different union groups, community members. So we got all this input, gathered it together, and formulated some new action plans and some changes. So the key changes to the LCAP this year is that the biggest one is we were adding 2 assistant principals, 1 assistant principal at Ishii and 1 assistant principal at the studios. Obviously, those are there for behavioral purposes and probably a lot of other sociological types of issues, and also managing the school. Increase the amount of money we're spending on attendance incentives to try to encourage students to come to school. And that's been something that we've since the COVID years, and then you had the year after COVID, and our attendance percentage is way down. It's really been a struggle to kind of get kids back to that, hey, 94% of the time you're coming to school as opposed to 75% of the time. So that's been a real struggle. And we're putting more focus on that in this LCAP. They added a PLC, which is a professional learning community. And a professional learning community is sort of a collaborative group of teachers who work together to look at data, come up with solutions and enact those solutions and look at data and repeat. But this is a special PLC for reading on a rotating schedule for all the schools. So it's a focused reading PLC district-wide. So that's a new group that we're putting together. And then we added a fourth goal with a few actions. And this was required due to being in program monitoring for 3 years. So there were some things we were required to address in the LCAP, and they are addressed, but they're not major big ticket items. So those were the main changes. Otherwise, the LCAP is the same LCAP you've seen in years before. The numbers are a little different because, when I recalculate everybody's salary, obviously it's going to be different every year. But those are the main changes to the LCAP. Do you guys have questions about the LCAP?
No questions, no comments?
No?
Okay,
All right.
move
Thank
on
you.
to
Thank
the
you.
original budget.
All right, original budget. So the original budget is the first budget we have in the year. It was developed on assumptions made in May when the governor's May revised budget came out, May 15th. Those are the numbers that we're going to use to create the original budget. Even though at this point, we have a little bit better perspective on what the actual budget's going to look like. It's too late at this point to redo the budget. So it's May assumptions, and your first real budget's going to be your first interim budget, which comes out in the fall. And that's going to have the actual state enacted budget, and it'll have the actual federal enacted budget as well. The federal budget comes out October 1st. So the original budget is based on a lot of assumption. Additionally, the expenditures are all based on assumptions as well. So I have a lot of, in the budget, you have a lot of, oh, here's a vacancy for a number of different positions. This year, tons of vacancies. I think I had 5 pages of them. This year, we normally have 1 or 2 pages of them. And those are just estimates of where people are going to be paid at when they start. It's just me trying to figure that out. So the original budget tends to be a little conservative, since I'm saying, well, what do I predict is going to happen? You take a little bit of a conservative view. So your original budget's based on a lot of assumption. It's conservative. So you know that when you get to first interim, it's going to change quite a bit. So what's new in this budget? So a couple of key highlights, and a lot of the things that are new in this budget we've already talked about before, but there are a few things that we haven't talked about yet, and I wanted to talk about them here. There is a new, well, it's not new, but the ERMS program, which is a special education mental health program. I believe it's mental health. The money used to go to the county office, and then the county office spent it for us on services that they provide. The state has changed it now. So now the money comes directly to the school district, and then I transfer it back to the county office. So it changes the way the budget looks when it comes to those things. Now there's a big transfer every year where there wasn't one, and there's additional state and federal revenues in special ed that come and go. So that's one of the things that's been added. The COLA at second interim, the COLA projected was 8.13. The governor's May revision was 8.22. And I believe that's where it's going to land when they settle the budget here shortly. So that was used in this budget. And then the special education program for Oroville City Elementary School District is expanding for next year. We have a higher population of special education students, and there are expanding needs and requirements that have required us to open up some new classrooms of special ed. So there's an additional budget contribution from the unrestricted budget to the restricted budget for special education purposes. So those are the kind of the three new things that are in the original budget that weren't there when you saw it on the multi-year projection for second interim. We talked about this before, and I told you I was going to talk to you about this every single time I talked about the budget for a while until this was all laid to rest, and this might be the end of it. The other post-employment benefits, this represents the health benefits that we pay to our retired employees. We have a $4 million liability of what we should put in the bank of that we owe on those benefits. At the last time I presented a budget, I talked about we can open a special fund that is revocable. We can put the $4 million and it can live there and take care of itself and it'll be all good. And we do have one-time money to do that with. I do think it would be very healthy for Oroville City Elementary School District to have those funds. They still will be accessible by the board should an emergency occur. These wouldn't be like, hey, it's a different priority. This would be, hey, there's an emergency. So in this budget, I do budget making that transfer of the $4 million. It's a one-time transfer, it goes into Fund 20, and then I start managing Fund 20 separately with the $4 million that's in there. And then the money will come in and out, and that's where retirees would be paid from, and I'll pay money in to backfill to keep the liability where the actuary says it should be. So that's another feature of this budget. So adopting this budget next week gives me the authority to make the transfer in July, or actually I'll probably do it in September or October once the state cash has started coming in and everything's copacetic. But that's another piece of the budget that I wanted to highlight for you that I think is important to know about. And I think it's a huge step for Oroville Elementary's financial health long-term to take care of a liability that we've had on the books, unable to touch, and to take care of it finally. Other agencies, I know the Butte County Office of Education funded this when I was there. And that was probably 10, 15 years ago. So Oroville City Elementary School District hasn't really been in the financial position to do this. But right now, due to circumstances, we are. So I think it's a very important move. A multi-year projection. The multi-year projection is the 3-year look at the budget. What you'll see is deficit spending in each of the years of unrestricted and restricted. And this shows the one-time money that we received for learning loss mitigation and COVID that we already received, that, but haven't yet spent, but are spending according to their timelines because they said, here's the money, you have 5 years to spend it or whatever. So we mapped it all out and make sure we're making the best use of the funds, keep the things we like in place as long as possible. But it's showing those monies tailing out. And then after that 3rd year, all that one-time money is gone. And then you do have in the 2nd year in 24-25 a reduction in LCFF funding by a few $100,000. And this is, if you recall, a few years back, the LCFF formula became, instead of it being based on this year or last year, whichever one was higher, they said, well, we can use the average of the last 3 years or this year, whichever one is higher. So that sort of smoothed out the decline that we had, especially during COVID. It smoothed out for a few years, but it's catching up to us next year, where we will have a reduction because of declining enrollment. Unless, of course, enrollment turns around, which would be great. We're hoping for that, so let's do that one instead. But that's the plan right now for original budget. Any questions about original budget?
Board have any questions or comments? No. Does anyone in the public have any comments on the LCAP, LCFF, or the original budget? Do we have any comments online? Backpack?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for presenting those. So we will now move on to item 7, presentations. A early literacy support block grant update, Oakdale Heights, year 2.
There you go. Oh, wait, where's not up? Hold up, let me fix it.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Ms. Felder, Ms. Gutierrez, Mr. James, audience, and viewers. My name is Tom Chow. On behalf of Mr. Battencourt and Oakdale community, I am pleased to update the ELSB grant for the year 2022 and 2023. So it's our second year of the grant, and we have used the money to do monthly plan, to do study, psychoanalysis, to do leadership training, to get a contract with CORE for tier 2 intervention, for pull-out instruction for tier 3 students who are reading 3 years or below in their reading skill. And we have served 85 students this year. Out of those 85 students, 29 or 34% have graduated from the program. That means they either have tested out after going through our program, or they have gone through the whole progress. So there's 3 levels: beginning, extension, and challenge. Challenge is equivalent of second grade reading skills. So if they have gone through all 3 levels, that means they're at least at second grade level. We have shown tremendous improvement in our iReady diagnostic, in the sense that our reading scores have grown tremendously. If you look at here, our iReady diagnostic window 1, which was the fall, and then spring assessment, we have grown from 9% at or above grade level to about 35%. So that's a tremendous increase. That's overall. But if you look at the sub skills that we assess using iReady, the phonological awareness and phonics. So the program that we use to do an intervention is called SIPS, Systematic Instruction in Phonological Awareness, Phonics, and Sight Words. So lots of patterns of how words sound, the whole science of research base, the science of reading. Not so much focus on comprehension yet, because we're just trying to develop students in the early phase of reading skills. And it's been a great success in a sense, continued success in our second year, because if you look also at our grades, the grant focuses on TK to 3, and our grades 1 and 3 have shown tremendous improvement. Grade 2 are coming along, but everyone's coming along in the sense that they're really mastering their phonics when they come to intervention. We also conducted a survey of students and see how they're liking or what they feel about the program. We have asked them, so of 85 students, we try to survey everyone, but only 64 responded. And out of that 64, 98% said that, hey, after going through this experience, I believe I can read, or I can get better. So we're trying to also build their confidence using PBIS, focusing heavily on that. 98%, which is only 1 student left over, responded that they have made significant improvement by being pulled out for reading intervention. 56 or 88% responded that reading intervention has helped them to enjoy their reading experience a lot more than before. 49 students, or 77%, said that they read more since they had been pulled out, because I guess they feel that reading is important and they're seeing different role as reading skills help them open their eyes a little bit more. And 77% responded that reading intervention has been really valuable in their academic and reading life. We also look at students that receive intervention, and 66% said that reading intervention has shown tremendous improvement. And we define tremendous improvement in our study, in our program, as students who made 20 points or more. So our range is for significant improvement is if you make 20 to 164 points, then we consider you have been making a significant improvement. So 66% or 50% out of 85 students made significant improvement, according to our iReady diagnostic results. 21% or 18% of students receiving intervention show moderate growth. So students who show at least 1 point to 19 points. And 7%, which is 6 students, said show that according to iReady diagnostic, they didn't make any progress. However, some of those students did not take the spring, which is the tail end in the last test, to allow us, to afford us the real analysis of how they actually did. When in fact, those 2 students made gains from fall to winter, between first and second assessment. And as mentioned earlier, 29 students, or 34% of 85, have gone through the progression or have tested out after getting the intervention, excuse me. Now, we also did a correlation between our SIPS instruction and iReady results. And it's only about 4% difference, because in our significant growth, we saw that in iReady, 66% of them made significant growth, but in our internal mastery assessment, it's 62% only. So there's a little discrepancy there. I mean, a little difference, but not significant. And to us, all our students, if they come to the program, they make some progress, show some improvement, because you have a student that comes to you not reading or knowing the alphabet, but then a few weeks down the line, they know the alphabet and they're beginning to read. That's positive. That's improvement. So that's why when we're doing mastery or informal assessment, when we look at our students and see where they're coming from, where they started and where they're coming from, I mean, where they end up, we see progression in every one of them. But for some reason, that doesn't necessarily show in iReady or on computer test. So next year will be our 3rd and final year of the grant. And we'll continue with our coach, one teacher specialist who also serves as a coach and mentor to our teachers at K to 3rd grade. We'll do our intervention K to 3, as well as focusing on some upper grades too, based on their needs. We'll increase our library time, because in one of our surveys, we asked students, what would make you read a little bit more, and what do you think would help you a little bit more? I say, hey, access to books. Well, we do have library that opens, but we want to expand that. and actually escort or chaperone them to the library to get books. And then continue to contract core to provide more SIPS instruction and to do our cycle of analysis and planning. So that's our plan. Thank you.
Does the board have any questions or comments?
No, you answered my question.
The survey for the first through third graders, is that done on the computer as well?
No, that was, we use paper. For first or kindergartens that we survey, we actually help them read it and
Ask them the
explain to
question.
them. Yeah.
Okay.
It sounds like that you've seen a lot of success with this program. So thank you very much for showing that and for the effort that you and your staff are putting into it. I'm curious about the kids that are moving into fourth grade that maybe haven't mastered. Or do they get additional support once they've moved out of that grade range?
Yes, although the grant doesn't cover fourth and fifth, we have been serving those fourth and fifth graders because we see that they need that
Mhm.
desperately.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic, misinstruction, because of the crisis and the hardship that we have been going on. A lot of our students have missed instruction and essential skills, reading skill building. So we did pull out students who are 3 years below fourth and fifth grade, and those students, they're actually very dynamic in that they're able to excel really fast because once they get their basic
Mhm.
phonics and basic skills, they just run with it. So we have really great success with upper grades too.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So we will move on to action session number 8, public comment on action items. The board will extend an invitation to interested parties who wish to speak on items that are listed on the agenda. For those attending remotely who wish to comment, use the raise your hand button to be called on to speak. Comments may also be emailed to backpack@ocesd.net. Please include your first and last name in your email. Comments received that pertain to items listed on the agenda will be read into record during this time. However, comments received without the sender's name will not be read. The Brown Act does not allow the governing board to discuss or take action on any item that is not on the posted agenda. Do we have any comments in backpack email?
No, we do not.
Okay, and do we have anyone online with the raised hand?
No.
No. Okay. Is there any public comment from the room that would like to speak on an agenda item?
Yeah, now would be.
Now would be the time to speak on that. Mhm.
Is it when, oh,
You're good to
good,
go.
I can hear it, yeah. So you know me, I'm Lauren Albert. Just have a few days left being the principal of the studios at Central, and I'm super excited. I wasn't asked to prepare anything, but I did want to say that I'm so excited about this change actually. And I wanted you to hear that from me, that it's something that I chose and am so excited. We have an awesome new principal coming in just a few days. He has a week left in his school, but Vince Zhang, and he's here tonight, and he brought family and friends, which is great to see all the support. And that's what I'm doing here tonight, is to not just say that I'm excited about being assistant principal, but the studios needs to, we need someone to work with behaviors. We need someone to help coach staff so we can prevent some of these behaviors and really get in the classrooms and get to the root of the problem. And it was really difficult to do that by myself. So this year, I know we're going to see great things. And if you made it, we have already been talking about some ideas. I know he needs to be official first, so you could do that for me. But we're just having great conversations about what we plan to see in 3 years' time, because change does take time, but I think you're going to see it. You're going to see it really quickly here. Vince has a lot of experience. And so that's pretty much what I want to say. It's just how this is going to be a great thing for our district and for our kids. My kids go to our schools. I have one at Central at Studios, and one at Wyandotte, and a high schooler. And so it's really personal. It's personal for the kids that we have, the over 300 students at our school, but it's also, it's what's happening for my family. And so I think he actually has a more formal thing to say, and he gets to introduce himself. And you guys already know me, so I don't need to go through all of that. But thank you for giving me a minute to just say how excited I am. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, Mr. Zhang.
Good evening, Madam President. I really haven't gotten the opportunity to meet you yet, members of the board. Same thing, I have not had the opportunity to meet you yet. And Mr. James, looks like we'll be working pretty closely. I haven't had the opportunity to meet you either. So, and over here, Ms. Fielder and Ms. Gutierrez, thank you for being here tonight. I was asked by Dr. Holton to come in and speak a little bit, but I thought it was more formal to have it approved first, and then I would introduce myself and say hi. But anyhow, I want to also recognize that I have family here. So if my family in the house, if you can stand also so that our board can recognize you. I brought my wife, my son, my brother, and his kids. And then as I got into this, also members of the Oroville Hmong community is also here. So members of the Hmong community, if you can also stand, I'd like to recognize that as well. Go ahead. And then I also have some, as words travel, I also have members of the Mian community here in Oroville as well. If you can stand as well. Okay. And they're here tonight because, and I also want to recognize Mrs. Albert, of course, for being here to support and being here to also say what she said. I'm really excited. And I'm pretty sure that Spencer had shared quite a bit with you, hopefully. But I come with 27 years of experience in education. And I come with community building and people building. And I'm going to work with Lauren and work with Spencer to make sure that our goal is to create a school where it's going to be a model school for the Oroville City Elementary School District. And so I've already started putting some plans together and really looking forward to it, excited. And I am excited and glad to take on that responsibility as your principal at the Central or Studios Middle School. So thank you for the confidence. Thank you for the responsibility. I gladly accept. And we look forward to moving the school forward in academics and in attendance and decreasing the behavior. And we have already some plans in place to address those. So thank you so much for allowing the opportunity to go ahead and speak. And I look forward to getting to know you more and moving along with the community towards growth and development for our children. So thank you much. And yeah, I will leave it at that.
Thank you very much and welcome. We're glad to have you. I'm looking forward to what the two of you can do as a team to help support our students and our staff and our parents and our community.
Are you okay if I come up there and shake your hands? Or
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome. All right. Thank you for coming. Does anyone else have anything to say, would like to speak? Okay, we'll move on. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any comments or questions on the consent agenda from the board? All right. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 4 yes votes.
That wasn't even the whole town.
All right, we will move on to item number 10, new business to adopt trustee area map. So do we have any other further discussion or questions on?
I think it's up to you at this point. If the board so decides, they can adopt one of the maps that are presented. We've had any input that we've had, you've been presented maps that
Mhm.
represented that. We haven't had any additional input, so if the board is comfortable, it would probably make sense to select a map, vote on it, and approve it. If you don't feel comfortable, we can wait until a future board meeting in July.
We've had very little input, so nobody feels strongly about, there's no conflict. So it seems like it would be appropriate to move forward at this time in selecting a map. Any comments or questions from the board on that? Does anyone have a map that you would like to propose?
I propose the color purple, even though I don't like the color purple.
I support that as well. That has the least amount of variance in the so the consolidation of ethnicities. I like that map.
There's not a large disparity between
No.
the maps either geographically, which is consoling.
Mhm.
I just think it's more.
Mhm.
I think it's more.
So is there a motion to adopt the purple map? Okay, so it is recommended that the board adopt the purple map option as the trustee area map of choice, effective for the November 2024 election. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 4 yes votes. We're good to go.
Who's gonna break it
Thank
to
you very
Dale?
much for all your effort you put into that.
Thank you. And so that will cease being the purple map and that will just become pending.
The map.
By the county, your trustee area map. And so we'll prepare the formal files that will also get over to the county elections office. And then I'll be in touch with you, Mr. James, just with getting the, we said the last, it's not even really a hurdle, but just usually a formality to get in front of the county committee. And just make sure they don't have any issue with the map that you've chosen.
Great.
Which that tends to be more the case where you have a lot more activity than what
Right.
we've had in your process, so.
Yes.
Thank you for
All
your.
right,
hard work.
thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
It's been a pleasure, so.
All right,
Have a good evening.
we'll move it forward to the county. Wonderful. All right, so move on to item B, approved memorandum of understanding with the California School Employees Association bargaining unit job classifications for the new traditional preschool.
So this MOU and the following MOU memorialize that we met through the CFIRE process, developed these job descriptions and are adopting them and with what the salary ranges are. This is sort of a newer thing that we're doing. It's something that CSCA, the big CSCA wants done. So this is something you haven't seen before per se. But it's just an MOU saying that we worked together and came up with these different job descriptions. So that's what the 2 MOUs are.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'm still kind of interested to see how policy is going to change moving forward to accept the new striation of this whole.
As far as the MOU,
As far as what we discussed,
Mhm.
whether or not it's classified versus certificated and whether or not, the pay schedule, the liability policies and, the safety policies, how many students per, there's a whole lot of questions
right?
yet to be addressed
So
that are in exception of the ones that are in standard right now.
right. So the preschool program, when we have the preschool associate teacher and master teacher and the office manager, state preschool, these are all positions that there is as we negotiated this over the last probably year and a half, there is a chart for state preschool, because this is a very specific program. This is not,
Right.
Thing to
It
do
was a
with our-
lot easier when it was E-centers, you know.
right. So this is
Responsibility.
this is, just imagine it's a standalone program, like our cafeteria is a standalone
Okay,
program, it has its own money,
okay.
has its own complete separate fund. It doesn't even show up in the regular
So then the
budget.
policies are all
So
separate
it's
too.
all separate. And what they have is they say, well, this is what the preschool associate teacher requirements are. Here's the different class sizes. It's all, there's nothing really negotiable about it. It's just, here's the program,
Hmm.
you do it or you don't do it. So they dictate to you what the different limitations and things are. So it's all standardized at all the state preschool programs, right? So it's all the same. If you went to a state preschool program that was run by the County Office of Education, they would have the same types of job descriptions, the same types of student numbers, and the parent, if the parents had any part that they had to pay, would be with the same system.
Right.
So it's completely independent of what we're doing.
So how does the CSEA expect to bargain within reason on behalf of them?
So,
Because they
with-
have the new job description and they've agreed to those terms.
right. So what we did with CSEA is we sit down and we found similar job descriptions at districts, neighboring districts.
Okay,
Chico was the main one we picked off of, but Palermo and Thermalito also had these. And took those job descriptions as basically the template, right?
Okay.
And then changed some
Okay.
little pieces of it. And then made the salaries comparable to Chico,
okay,
because the funding is all the same. Like with LCFF funding, especially before LCFF, when we had revenue limit, depending on where you lived, your school district kind of got more or less money per student, right?
right,
Right, with LCFF, because we have a high population of unduplicated students, we have a higher, we get more money per student than does Durham, for example, who has a lower number. With state preschool, it's just, here's the money, it's the same. You should pay your people the same, right? So we sat down with the CSEA with the job descriptions that were CSEA job descriptions from other districts, and did it that way. There were options, there was the chart of the different types of positions had multiple different ones you could pick from. I think Thermalito has certificated teachers that are actually somewhere on that chart as certificated teachers in their preschool program. These were the ones that are classified non-certificated teachers.
okay.
So
I mean, I see that in the job descriptions, it's just that we haven't parceled any of this out.
I
In
do have a
past
question or a
conversations.
comment based on that as well. In
Yeah.
reviewing the job descriptions, I hadn't reviewed them before I spoke with you earlier. And so the master teacher does require a permit. It's not called a credential, but it's a certification that has to be renewed every so often, every couple of years, that needs to be monitored in the same way that a credential needs to be monitored. And that would, I believe, would be the only position within the classified CSEA that has to do that.
no, the educational therapists also have the same thing.
True. Okay.
And you might also have our HVAC maintenance person also has ongoing certification.
Okay.
So there are, and so do the, I don't know if the health aides do or not, but they're,
Usually not.
but I know our health aide too, when we had it, was an
Okay.
LVN position.
Mhm.
So it's not that the classified body of employees is not have certifications.
Okay.
They don't have teaching credentials.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And that's kind of been the line between a teacher and
Right.
not a teacher.
Okay.
And that's what we've been discussing.
All right. That makes sense. Does that make sense to you? Do you feel like it needs further discussion?
At this point, I mean, as far as we've gotten, it's as best as we can do, I suppose. I feel like there's going to be a question or something that's going to come up in the future.
I will say with this particular topic, this is something that we have broached with both unions,
Yeah.
though albeit a long time ago. And we have reviewed this with legal. We looked at the language of the two contracts. The certificated contract says all classroom teachers. The classified contract says all employees who aren't certificated or management or confidential. So how do you weigh which one's which? When we went and started putting the pieces together, when we looked at the different types of preschool teachers that you could get on the matrix, the big matrix of the state preschool program, there were certificated teachers that some programs use, and there were non-certificated teachers that some programs use. And those that used the non-certificated teachers they were classified in positions. So when we looked at that, we thought, well, all of the evidence points to this is a classified position. So that's what we move forward with. That's what our legal feels is appropriate. And if, I think from my perspective, looking at this, if there's going to be further discussion about reclassifying the position into the other unit, that's a conversation we can have. But if we don't approve these, you don't open a preschool,
No, we get it. It's
right?
just,
Because I can't hire any of these people.
I'm just not sure it's ever been done.
Well,
So
there have been, like, the educational therapist was probably more marginal than is this one.
Mhm.
Because the educational therapist has more of a closer to a credential than does the preschool teacher. And that is a classified position at this time. And to me, that one is that's if there's one that could kind of go either way. If one unit wanted it more than the other, that's probably the one. This one seems fairly clear to me, though there is some gray area.
Mm-hmm. And that's the gray area that I'm concerned with. The question will come.
Sure. Yeah.
Whatever we don't see today, it'll come.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, is there a motion to approve the MOU with CSEA for the new preschool job classifications?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Passes with 4 yes votes. Item C, approve memorandum of understanding with the California School Employees Association bargaining unit job classification for special education program.
So for the special education program, as we were bargaining state preschool side, we needed to revisit the office manager for special education. The position needs to be a full year position, and it needs to have some more prescribed types of required things that person knows how to do and does. So we work a lot with CSEA on this. Really, lots and lots of time is spent on getting here. So this is separate from the state preschool. It just happens that they're in the same building. So we're like, hey, let's get it all done. So this is a separate one. And again, this MOU is just memorializing that we agreed to these job descriptions.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Okay, is there a motion to approve the MOU with CSEA for the job classification special education program?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion or questions? Okay, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 4 yes votes. Okay, and item D is to approve the new classified job description for preschool master teacher. Any discussion, questions from the board? I think it was all included with the previous. Okay, is there a motion to approve the job description, new classified job description for preschool master teacher?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 4 yes votes. Now, item E is to approve the new classified job description for preschool associate teacher. Any further questions or comments from the board? I will entertain a motion to approve that job description.
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 4 yes votes. And now F to approve the new classified job description for office manager of state preschool. Any discussion? Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 4 yes votes. Item G is to approve the new classified job description for the office manager of special education. Any discussion?
Yeah, the preschool being a self-contained program is going to have its own office manager. That office manager has a completely separate reporting system, completely separate student attendance system. Special ed is, we already have a special ed office manager. We're expanding it. And it has its own, reporting system for special education data, but it also ties in with all of our other schools' special ed through CalPAD. So these are very distinctly different. They're both going to be working at Sierra del Oro, though one will be working on special ed side of the house, one will be working on state preschool side of the house. And their jobs are not really going to, other than answering the phone, answering the door, their jobs aren't really going to mix much.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the new classified job description for office manager of special education? Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 4 yes votes. Okay, item H is to approve special services agreement with Butte County Office of Education for ELOP.
So this is an agreement with the Butte County Office of Education to do additional after-school programs, which is part of the core of what the ELOP grant is, which is the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. And it gives that after-school component that's required by the state for that grant. So we've used BCOE for after-school programs in the past and still do. And this is just an expansion.
Any questions or comments from the board? Welcome, trustee Legrand.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I apologize.
Okay,
So you will have to do a roll call vote for this one.
okay. Is there any discussion on this item? Is there a motion to approve the special services agreement with BCOE for ELOP?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? So we'll do a roll call vote on this. Lisa Torres,
Yes.
Jessica Anthony,
Yes.
Sandra Barnes,
Aye.
Bill Legrand,
Yes.
and I'm I, so that's 5 yes votes. Motion carries. Item I is to approve independent contractor agreement, service agreement for Aspire Speech Therapy.
So this is just additional speech supports. We use numerous contractors for additional speech supports every year for our special education program. This is pretty standard.
Any questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve the independent contractor agreement, service agreement?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. Do we need to continue to do roll call vote? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 5 yes votes. Item J, approve professional services agreement, Connections Ed Consulting Incorporated.
This is a vendor that's going to be doing some IEP support. I'm not sure, Holly, if you wanted to jump in on this one at all, or.
It's a vendor that's going to do an independent educational evaluation. So it's a vendor that's not employed within our school district, requested by the parents and approved by the school district.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Will they be auditing the entire program or?
No, they're going to provide an assessment to a specific student in our district.
Got it.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the professional services agreement? Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 5 yes votes. Item K, review quarterly report of district compliance with Ed Code Section 35186, Uniform Complaint Procedures.
We have no complaints this quarter. And there is no action, just review.
And no action is necessary. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, we'll move on to item 11, business and finance. A, approve the 2023-24 certificated salary schedule.
So we have met through the CFIR process with OETA regarding some strategic changes to their salary schedule. The two main features of the change would be getting rid of the highest unit column, was it 75? And having 75 and 60 pushed together. I think that is a bit more of a modern approach to a salary schedule, especially in a day and age when pursuing units isn't as popular of a thing that's happening anymore for a lot of different reasons. And also it takes the years where there isn't a bump and you have to wait a few years to get a bump in pay, and it smooths that out. So every year in those latter years on your contract, you get a small bump in pay. And this is something that we worked out with OETA over a number of meetings. And this is something that they were very excited about. So.
Is there any questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve the 23-24 certificated salary schedule? Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 5 yes votes. Item 12, personnel, approve employment contract for Assistant Superintendent Business Services.
So this is my contract. I don't know. Approve it, don't approve it. We'll see what happens.
Any discussion from the board? No why questions? Why are we doing this? No, just kidding. All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's a second.
A second.
Any further discussion, questions, comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 5 yes votes.
Thank you. I appreciate your ongoing support.
Minutes are extra.
Item B is to adopt resolution 22-2309, 180-day wait period exemption for Tyler.
So Kimberly Tyler is our outgoing Director of Special Education. She's retiring, and she's retiring into the STIRS program. And we haven't done one of these STIRS ones. We've done a lot of the PERS ones. And they have a 180-day wait period, but before they can begin work again after they've retired. Unfortunately, Kimberly is our lead person when it comes to implementing the state preschool. So for that purpose, we have written this resolution so that she can come back before the 180 days is up and do some work on that state preschool implementation. After the 180 days is up, then she can come back as a whatever else she wants to do. But we definitely need her support before 180 days from now to get the state preschool up and operational.
Is she going to be up to it? Is she feeling up to it?
Well, she's the one that wanted me to do it. So
That's answers the question.
I saw her the other day. She seemed in good spirits. This would be, there's a lot of real specific stuff that has to go into putting together a state preschool, specific types of training, a specific knowledge base. So she has that expertise as she's been implementing this program. I just think she thought it would have been implemented by now. It just hasn't happened, but she is ready to implement. It'd be very difficult to try to find somebody to replace her with that knowledge base in a short period of time and have this thing implemented. So That's the sort of the crux of it.
Any other questions or comments from trustees? Is there a motion to adopt resolution 22-2309? Is
So moved.
there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with 5 yes votes. And we will adjourn the meeting at 6:39.
All the good parts.